Welcome everyone to today's webinar. We're very excited to have Michelle Etive with us today, and I'll introduce you to her very shortly. In the spirit of reconciliation, MS Limited acknowledges the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia, and we acknowledge their connections to land, sea and community. We pay our respects to the elders past, present and emerging, and we extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people with us today. It is my absolute pleasure to introduce you to Michelle Etive. Michelle actually has a Master's of Science in Coaching Psychology, and she specialises in enabling people to create purposeful, strengths-based change and to thrive as they create, learn and experiment together. Michelle is a co-founder of the Change Lab, and she helps to create cultures of curiosity by teaching people how to design and ask better questions. I came across the Change Lab doing a wellbeing program last year, and it's very exciting for us to have Michelle with us today, and we very much look forward to all that she has to share with us. So I'm going to click a few buttons with no further ado and get Michelle presenting her slides.
Perfect. I hope you can see that live and clearly there.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Andrea. And again, Andrea, as we go through, we'll be chatting away. And if you see anything you want to share, just shout out as we go. Hello, everybody. Welcome, especially Sydney-siders, because I think there's nothing better during a lockdown to do than a webinar. Why not? But everybody else as well. Really glad to be here. Thank you so much for having me, especially to put a spotlight on wellbeing. So you'll see that the Wellbeing Lab is what I'm working with today, and we've got a few different labs that specialise on different areas. As much as I love to do change, and one of the things I'll be talking to you about today is how we can make very small changes that have a big impact on our wellbeing. Of course, we'll be focusing on the wellbeing aspect today and what we can be doing in this lab as we play and experiment together. So again, putting a spotlight on wellbeing today, some of the things that I want to do with you over the next roughly 50 minutes is to, one, really highlight for you some of the latest insights when it comes to wellbeing science. Two, really explore this idea of thriving even in the face of struggle. And three, to really grow some of the look at how we can grow some of the very small things and practical things we can be doing when it comes to our well-being, specifically without relying on something as unreliable as our willpower. So that might be an interesting thing to stick around for, because I think that's usually the thing we berate ourselves over the most. So if you want to park that and go, all right, I can't count on that, and I have a few tips for you that we'll round out on. But today we're really coming here to hopefully grow your understanding on a topic such as well-being, because when it comes down to it, we all have very different ideas on this. And some of us have some very complex ideas, some of us have very personal ideas, some of us have very scientific ideas, some of us have very spiritual and personal ideas, but we all have a sense of what well-being might mean to us. I wouldn't mind, just to get us started and just to make sure that you can do the typing and that it's all working well, if you want to pop into that area that Andrea mentioned before and just pop down, just what's one of the words that comes to mind for you when you hear the word well-being? Or just one of the statements or things, like when you think of the word well-being, what comes up for you around its meaning or what it is or what it involves, anything like that? Just pop it in there. Let's see if we can get that section working for us.
We've got care, we've got healthy eating, happy, resilient, content, health, another content, doing life well. Healthy comes up a couple of times, being calm, at peace, emotional, mental and physical health, balanced, feeling in control, robust, emotional, positive, comfort with myself.
I love these. Thank you again. Thank you so much, everybody, for popping in there and popping in your ideas and sharing those. Isn't it interesting? There's such a complex array of what people think when it comes to wellbeing. And it's really nice that where there are so many different ideas coming forward as to what it means and what it means to us personally. One of the things that we will be looking at today is it in its simplest form, but also a slightly more complex view. So I'm hearing at the moment, we're hearing stuff about how we feel. I definitely heard things like content come up quite a bit. We heard things about how we're being, so our body and our health. Those are definitely a part of it. And also things about how we're interacting, connecting, feeling with others, maybe about how our life is sitting, but it's all very much a part of these different facets. And I think one of the things we get stuck on is that when we think about well-being and when places like our workplaces or others espouse ideas around well-being, it usually boils down to the 3 Fs, which is fruit, fitness and flu shots. And don't get me wrong, these are absolutely essential to our well-being in many ways, but there's a lot more to be talking about. So I'm really excited today to hopefully expand and talk in a bit more of a complex way that really does tap into all of the things you just talked about there. So the way that I'm feeling about myself and my life, the way that I'm connecting and, you know, having impact on others and doing the things I do in the world. And of course, finally, you know, how I'm feeling in my body and how I'm able to actually function and feel good each day. So let's kick off. First things first, it's in its simplest form from a scientific point of view and the way that we've been doing research in this space for the last 20 years, roughly, in the fields of wellbeing science, positive psychology, neuroscience, among other areas that have kind of invested in this wellbeing space. It's that wellbeing is our ability to feel good and function effectively. And I think this is important to us all because it really comes down to how we're able to navigate our day-to-days, as well as how we're enjoying what we do, how we're having a positive impact on others. All of these things comes down to our well-being and how we show up. So well-being really matters. Even if you are a person who likes to focus on others, maybe your work is one where you're constantly serving others and looking after others, our well-being matters because it comes down to how we can show up day to day and how we can do things in our world. And decades of research around this space really shows that greater well-being often leads to greater engagement and confidence in our day-to-day. We're more innovative and creative the higher levels of our well-being are. We tend to be more resilient, more purposeful, we have better relationships, and of course, better health. So not only do our well-being levels impact us as individuals and how we show up in the world, but our well-being is something that we experience collectively. So it's something that is a part of our social webs. So my well-being impacts others and others' well-being impacts my own. And you'll find the same in your world and your work. So if you would like to think about others' well-being, if you're showing up today to think about others' well-being, then remember all of us need to look at our own oxygen mask and if we're fitting it well to ourselves first, and of course then how we can take these learnings forward and support other people in our lives. So now with this in mind, well-being is something that is influenced by many factors, both inside of us and outside of us. There are many things that can influence and strengthen our well-being. And of course, many of these things in times are out of our control. Think about a global pandemic and the kind of impact that's had on all of us. Something clearly we don't have a lot of control over. However, there are many things that we can influence and strengthen individually and collectively so that we can move forward, so we can be supporting ourselves and our nearest and dearest. And that's really the things that we'll be exploring and trying to get a better understanding of today. So as we go forward and have a real look at this idea of well-being, one of the very first things that I want to do before we get into the doing is really have a bit of a check-in on our understanding of well-being, because one of the things we do is hold on to some slightly outdated beliefs most of the time when it comes to well-being that might not be serving us well. And it's not our fault. These are things that if we have been taught anything at all about well-being, these are usually the things that we've been taught along the way. So I want to give you a bit of an insight into what a lot of these things might be. So first things first, a lot of us are taught around this idea of well-being as a continuum. We're either really thriving and doing well, I've got high well-being, or we've got low well-being. We're not doing so well, we're struggling. So if I'm struggling in my day-to-day life and I'm feeling low and maybe things are coming at me hard and things aren't going as well as I could, clearly I've got very low well-being because life's just a little bit too hard for me right now with the face of things and I'm feeling badly, so well-being is naturally going to be low. And when times are going really well for me and I'm feeling better, then that means there's opportunities for well-being to be high. So we were taught that you have well-being, whether it be a lot of well-being or low well-being, along this kind of one continuum. And if things go hard, you'd get shoved one way. And if things go well, you're going to get a chance to go the other way. And this is helpful so that we're thinking about, okay, where am I at with my well-being right now? But we realize it suggests something. That is, when life is difficult, we cannot thrive. And we might not realize that if we're thinking about I'm feeling good right now and I'm feeling well, or I'm not feeling good, I'm not feeling well, that isn't the only way that we can be looking at this kind of continuum. We've been looking at some of the exploration around our studies ourselves and the world in the work of wellbeing science has really been exploring this idea of a dual continuum. This idea that we can experience high thriving as well as low thriving, so again, high wellbeing, low wellbeing, while also experiencing high struggle and low struggle as separate things that exist outside of that. And this has been kind of a more nuanced and more complex way of looking at wellbeing over the last couple of years, inspired by the work of Professor Corey Keyes. And our Wellbeing Lab has really taken that forward and done a lot of research in Australia to find that, yes, people can thrive, be high thriving and high struggle. You can experience low struggle and low thriving as well. These are not things that are experienced in together, but kind of they do impact each other, but they can exist in different quadrants here going along. So wellbeing is not something that we just have or don't. It's something that we have or we don't, or we have high levels of or low levels of, despite and are influenced by our levels of struggling along the way. So I'm going to get more into detail on this, but before we do, I think it'd be very helpful for you to have a look at where you are right now. So I'll invite you just to take a moment to have a think. And we'll pop up a poll, but it's pretty much asking you, taking all things together over the last month, where have you felt most like you sit? Is it in this kind of really struggling category? Is it not feeling terrible, but just getting by? Are you living well despite some struggles? Are you perhaps feeling on top of the world? Again, there's no right or wrong answer here. You might feel that you're a little bit borderline on some, but how about you just go with your gut and go, which one are you leaning most towards now? Clearly, these results will be confidential. It's not going to pop up with your names. It'd just be nice to get a sense for yourselves and for everybody else where you sit with relation to this.
So that's on your screen now. You can vote on that with your mouse. Just use the little white dot and click on the answer that best represents how you're feeling today. I can see that most people have voted, so there's a few more people to vote on that. Could be up to about 10 people to vote, but pop in your vote and then we'll just share a graph with you to see, really, to show you that you're not alone in how you're feeling. So anyone else like to vote on that? And I'll close it off and I'll show the results.
Thanks so much, Andrea. It'd be lovely to see how people have been feeling over, say, the last month. Just go with your gut. The first thing that comes to mind. We're not going to hold you to it. You're not going to be forced to feel this way for the rest of the day. Just right now.
I'll close that off and share the results. Yeah, I'm sorry. I think my internet is coming in and out. So 46% of people are living well despite some struggles. 34% of people not feeling terrible, but just getting by. And 20% really struggling.
Yeah. And again, thank you so much to everybody for their honesty when it comes to sharing this and their insights around how things are going for them in their world and their work and their lives. And this is just an important thing to think about when it comes to, where might I be sitting at any particular point in time, because the more nuanced we can be in terms of understanding where we are at any particular point in time, the more questions we can ask ourselves about what do I need to do to shift. Because if we are feeling like we are struggling and things are going hard in our world and work, then one of the things we might assume is that we can't be thriving. Whereas if we think about where we might be sitting and what we might be able to do at any particular time, we might learn new things. So first things first, if you can see here, this is some of the research that came back from the Australian workforce. It was a collected about 1,000 person sample in May this year. And you'll see just roughly where people are sitting on this continuum roughly. So you see there's a lot of people sitting, in a mix of spaces. It is, kind of close to this particular population. We have a slightly higher group of people who are feeling that they fit into that, really struggling category here at the moment. But there are things to note when it comes to this space about what we're seeing when it comes to other people's experience of where they're sitting at any particular point in time. So one of the things the research has been teaching us of late is that people who sit in the struggling category, especially over the last 12 months, have really been faced with a high amount of struggle because, especially our world, our work, our lives have really been impacted by the global pandemic, but also that there has been, with the great struggle we've been experiencing collectively, a lot more of an opportunity to be open and honest about it. One of the things that we tend to do naturally when it comes to struggle, unfortunately, because we have been taught this as a way to be, is to hide it and is to not feel that we can be open and share our struggles. Whereas it is, when we think of it as a natural part of wellbeing, it's not something with which we are failing at wellbeing or we're not living well, but rather struggle can actually be something that you can perform with. It's something that you can still live well with. It's something that you can still be out there and connecting with others and doing good work in the world, even if we are facing struggle at any particular point, if we kind of spend some time developing and getting the support to build the skills and the tools to do so, then there is a lot more to this than just if I'm struggling, then I can't be doing anything that I hope to do in the world and my work, but rather that there might be things that I can be tapping into here. Living well despite some struggles, this tends to be our group where you've connected with the things that really do make a difference when it comes to well-being, and that is well-being knowledge. So understanding what's it going to take in terms of the kind of skills that I might need to build my well-being, kind of resources I might need to build them, all the really small practices. A lot of us have never been taught about well-being, so knowing that can really help us live well in the face of struggles like a lot of us have been over the last 12 months. It just might take a little bit of a knowledge boost, a little bit of motivation around that space, and of course some of the psychological safety it might take to help get people to help connect with us and lend us a hand and actually reach for that and ask for that at any particular point. One really important thing that the research has helped us understand that I want to highlight to you is they've found that people who sit in that consistently thriving category, so they're not experiencing a lot of struggle, but they are thriving, and they've got high well-being, and those sitting in the high struggle category, and they also have high well-being, have not indicated any difference in levels of performance. And that's what's really interesting, I think, from a workplace perspective and just in terms of where we kind of show up in our lives. A lot of us assume that if we are struggling, therefore we can't do well at work or in our world or perform or whatever it might be. And struggle, I mean, it's quite a broad topic there. Struggle is a bit vague, I know, but it means any kind of face or challenge or struggle, anything that's a difficulty that you're facing in your life. That really highlights that we can be thriving in the face of struggle, but also that struggle is something best spoken about and shared and embraced and understood as a natural part of well-being. And it doesn't necessarily state or share your capability, how you're going to show up in the world, and what you can be doing for yourself and others at any particular point in time. And I think this is what's been really important coming out of newer studies in this space, rather than seeing everything as one way or the other. So high well-being, low well-being, can do things, can't do things. Just been a very limited view on how we function in the world. Of course, there's our not feeling bad, but just getting by category. This tends to be the group who have a really good opportunity here to take advantage of doing a little bit if they can to build a little bit more knowledge and skills in the area of building their well-being, because with that, and with a little bit of that, we find that people can easily slip up to that living well despite struggle category, or, again, and, can really live well, slip up to that consistently thriving category. If I'm not facing a lot of struggle right now, then maybe simple things that I can be doing to kind of grow in this space. And then finally, the consistently thriving. I know we didn't say anyone in this group kind of resonated here, but for those who are, it's a really good opportunity for them to bolster. If you've got anyone in your life that's saying, oh, I'm consistently thriving, it's not a place to overlook building our well-being capability, because when we slip and if we don't have the skills and tools to lean into at any point, then it can be really difficult to move forward. So always practicing where we can build our well-being knowledge, our well-being motivation, and our support networks to help us with our well-being is really what it comes down to when it comes to growing and moving more towards the thriving categories despite struggle. So again, I hope that's a different way of looking at well-being for you, but when it comes down to it here is that both your levels of thriving and your struggle shape your well-being. Our levels of struggle will actually help us grow at any particular point, the skills, resources, and tools that we can lean into later on to keep thriving. So we need to not ignore struggle. We need to embrace it and normalize it as a very natural part of the ebbs and flows in life, and to, of course, paint a slightly more nuanced picture of well-being so that we can lean into this idea that there are always things that I can be doing and growing to move forward. So a few really simple things that I want to round out on as we move into caring for our well-being. Our research, one, has helped us realize that we can thrive despite struggle. We've also found that much like our energy, our well-being can ebb and flow day to day. It can be high. Think about your energy. Who's kind of got really low energy about 3 o'clock in the afternoon and maybe really high energy at different points during the day? Really think about that. So again, our well-being can go up that way day to day, week to week, month to month. If you're feeling like your well-being's a bit low, it's not a suggestion that your happiness is doomed, that the end is nigh, but rather that is a natural thing for you to kind of have these moments of up and down. The goal here is not to attain the perfect magic scores of well-being on any particular scale, but rather to embrace opportunities where struggle presents to learn and grow and build the resilience and resources you might need at any particular point when it comes to your well-being. And of course, take steps to reduce struggling wherever you can. So think of them as not one that you do, I build well-being or I reduce my struggling, but something that you do both in. So if you're taking steps to reduce your struggling, wonderful, but you're probably also going to have to take steps to build your well-being. They're not things that happen just because you impact the other. They're different continuums. So again, reduce struggling, build well-being are things that you need to be doing together. And of course, doing them day to day. Well-being is a day-to-day proposition, and it's something that we need to be doing a little bit at every stage of our day or everything around our day to keep building going forward. Much like eating one piece of broccoli isn't going to get you fit and healthy, well-being is something that we need to commit to day to day. And I'm going to talk right now about some of the ways that you can be doing that and growing and caring for your well-being and helping others do that as we go forward. Okay, so first things first, take a moment. This can be just something you do for yourself, but I'd like you to ask these questions. First things first, as you experience the last 2 weeks, think about the last 2 weeks in your world and your work and your life. On a scale of 0 being never, 5 being half of the time, and 10 being all of the time, where is your well-being sat on each of these different pillars? So 1 being positive emotion. So how positive have you felt? On a scale of 0 being never, 5 being half of the time, and 10 being all of the time, where do you score for the last 2 weeks? Just quickly note that down for yourself. So in an engagement, I felt interested and deeply engaged. On a scale of 0 to 10, where do you sit? Take a moment to write that down.
Michelle, I'm still here in the background. If people want to put that in the chat, they can do that in the question area. I've just turned off my camera, so it's not taking too much internet.
Thanks for letting me know that, Andrea, because I thought you disappeared, so it's nice to know you're there. So if anybody wants to put positive emotion scores there, feel free. Engagement scores, just put the word next to it. It's lovely to see. So for relationships, I feel respected and appreciated by others. Andrea, you don't have to read them all out, but if you see trends or rough numbers, feel free to let me know. Again, no need to share this if you don't feel like it, but it's just good to know. So a sense of meaning. So I feel what I did was valuable and worthwhile over the last 2 weeks. Where do you rate there? So accomplishment, I made progress towards my goals. Again, don't overthink it, go with your gut. It'll be a nice quick indicator for you. So there you go. And then of course, finally, health. So feeling strong and healthy.
That's great. Marianne has put in 877885.
Nice.
Diane's put 558.
Isn't that interesting? We're seeing that, some we've got really high in some areas.
So we've got some mix in how people are feeling.
Yeah, and this is interesting, isn't it? Because if I just said to you, do you have high or low well-being? You probably would have said, oh, okay, maybe midway, maybe high, maybe not. It would have been hard to answer. If I asked you, okay, if you sit on the thriving versus struggle, well-being, high thriving, low thriving, struggle, high struggle, low struggle spectrum, you would have given me another view, which again makes it a little bit more nuanced. Here's another way you can make that view of your well-being even more nuanced. And like you saw there, on some areas you're sitting quite high, and some areas you may be sitting a bit below the mark. We find that about 7 to 8 is, roughly where most populations sit on the pillars when they're doing well. So again, it depends on what's happening in your world and how you're feeling in any particular area, and to get a sense of where you are right now. And again, there's nothing wrong with having any particular score, but rather it might draw your attention to where some of the strengths lie in your well-being right now, and maybe where you want to capitalize and continue to grow things you're already feeling strong at, because it will continue to have positive effects in your world and work and to help build forward. And then of course, on the other side, where are maybe some of the areas that could do with some extra work because they are sitting a bit lower on the spectrum. So again, it's not to say that you've got to choose always the areas that you're feeling the lowest at. There's a lot to be gained by investing in the areas that we already have some strength in, because all of these aspects impact our overall sense and feeling of well-being. So again, feeling good, functioning effectively. But of course, if we've got areas that are drawing us back, we might want to pay particular attention to those as well. So this is your choice. But what I really want you to do now is think about, where am I at? And is my well-being serving me right now in terms of how I'm feeling and showing up each day? And is there an area that I would like to prioritize learning about and growing going forward? And I'm going to take you through now, just a little bit about each of these pillars and one very simple way that you can start doing, something practical in this space to grow that going forward. So here we go. This is what we call the Perma Framework. So there are a lot of different wellbeing frameworks that you could draw from at any point. You might be familiar with some, you might be less familiar with some, but this is the one that we tend to lean towards, my group, and we're very fond of it. It's by the psychologist, Professor Martin Seligman, who heads up the positive psychology, or was actually the founder, one of the co-founders of the field of positive psychology and that movement that started about 2 decades ago, and heads up this department at the University of Pennsylvania, who kind of lead a lot of the research in this space, along with some of the other universities in the world. And of course, Melbourne University, who are our special group here in Australia, who really lead off the charge a lot in the wellbeing science space. But we've chosen this particular model of wellbeing because it's very helpful, very easy to understand. It's very nice to be able to think about practical ways that we can grow each area. So in a nutshell, each of these elements really matter when it comes to your well-being every day. And it depends on you, how you'll bring them to life, how they'll play out in your world, and of course, what you'll be doing and what works for you in any particular space. These are quite personal, even if they are shared across each individual. So first things first, P for positive emotions. So our ability to feel and experience heartfelt positive emotions day to day have a big impact on our well-being. Of course, our engagement, so our sense of our connection with our strengths and being able to engage in those day to day has an impact on our well-being. Our sense of relationships, so how we're connecting with others and how often we're connecting with others, has a huge impact on our well-being, more so than anything else. Of course, there's our sense of meaning. A sense of meaning can have, and the fact that we're making a difference to others is something that has a really big impact on our well-being. A sense of accomplishment, so feeling like what we're doing matters in the world and that we're achieving things, has a really big impact on our well-being. And finally, our health, so our ability to move, sleep and eat well has a big impact on our well-being. So again, you'll see that across these different pillars, there's quite a few things that we can be looking at and exploring when it comes to growing and shaping our well-being. And one of the things that we can be doing in each of these spaces is, rather than what we tend to call, or what we tend to want to do, and we expect ourselves to do at any particular point, which is make grand sweeping gestures to quickly write up a huge change, priority. Maybe it's more like a resolution, much like we do at the start of the year and say, everything's going to change. Here's all the things that I will do towards my well-being. Tiny is mighty. Please remember that. It's one of the most helpful things when it comes to your well-being. Tiny is mighty when it comes to caring for well-being. This is the wonderful work of Dr. BJ Fogg, who talks about a thing called tiny habits, and I'll be rounding our session talking about that. So where well-being, our motivation and our willpower gets in the way, and where we feel like we've got to make huge changes to our life to impact and care for our well-being, please don't get swept up in that idea. I'm going to talk about one very small, simple thing you can be doing in each space right now that you can be developing. And if you don't feel that that really suits you, fits you well, and you can't shape it in a way that you enjoy, then please have a look at page 8 in your playbook. You'll find that we've created a little table for you that shares quite a few different things that you could be picking up and using for each of these different areas of well-being. And that way you don't have to worry about, again, this not being suited to you, that there's not something for you. Hopefully there's something that you can find there. So first things first, let's get into caring for our well-being. So positive emotions, where we started. Positive emotions, such as our sense of awe, excitement, gratitude, joy, pride, serenity, amusement. Think of all of those things that tend to play out for you when they feel good. We don't tend to be very good at labeling them. But they are things that help us at any particular point open our hearts and our minds, making us more receptive, creative and connected. And I have to honestly say, from my experience and joining this field and learning about wellbeing science, this was one of the biggest differences that made to my wellbeing, because I think I was personally, much like many people that I've met, caught up in when I wasn't feeling bad or when I was feeling stressed, and really focusing on how to reduce that, because it was our negative emotions that mattered. The things, the serious emotions that tell us and warn us of when things aren't going well, when things might be going wrong, were the things that we naturally want to tap into, because our brains are wired that way. We want to be aware of any kinds of things that could be coming at us and, you know, be problematic in our environment, things we might need to defend ourselves from. But rather, if we actually pause and focus on the positive emotions, or at least tap into them and try and create as many of them as we can, it has the exact opposite effect to our negative emotions. So when we experience negative emotions, we feel, again, they'll come at us because we want to be experiencing and noticing where things might go wrong in our environment, that anxiety, that stress, that sadness. It helps us focus in on a very small space to think about, okay, I've got my flight or flight on. I'm only going to focus on the things that I need to and give all my energy into the things that I might need to defend myself from, because here's where the problems lie. So it cuts off a huge amount of the information we can take in, the decisions we can make, the complex thinking we can do in times of struggle, because all those negative emotions make us do this. Again, it's a natural survival mechanism. It's very good for us. However, positive emotions, when we experience those, it has the opposite effect. It's called the broaden and build effect. And this is the wonderful work of Professor Barbara Fredrickson and what she was able to bring to the wellbeing science space. It's that when we feel positive emotions, we can take in more information, we can be more creative, we can do more complex thinking, we can see more pathways out of our struggle. Has anybody ever been crying and felt that they were really, really drowning in the moment, and then someone made them laugh? Has anyone laughed at a really inappropriate moment? I'm sure. Just feel free to pop that in chat if that's a yes or a bit of a laugh or whatever it might be. But, you know, I think that that's a really good example. You are suddenly able to kind of go, all right, I'm able to take a step back, or I'm able to see a different side of this, or okay, maybe things aren't as bad as it would. That laughter, that boost of positive emotion, is one of the quickest ways to cut off a negativity spiral. So what can you be doing to leverage this at any particular point in time? Prioritize a jolt of joy to start your day, to make sure that you have the energy to go forward, play, and do the things you want to do in your world. And I know this seems a bit forced and a bit odd, but if you think of it as a tool, if you think about positive emotions as being something that's going to help you be more creative, more innovative, more playful, and all those things, then please take steps to insert this into your day wherever you can. Again, a jolt of joy. What's the smallest thing that you can be doing for a jolt of a positive emotion? Again, or excitement, whether it be gratitude, whether it be joy. What are the things you can be doing? For me, it's a song. Nothing will turn on my positive emotions more than a song. So I always have a bit of a nostalgia playlist going on, so that if I have a moment in my day, I kick off with a really good mood. Maybe it's a laugh, maybe it's a short comedy clip. Maybe for you, it's a walk outside and breathing in a flower. Maybe it's a slight moment of sending a nice message to someone you care about. What is the smallest jolt of joy that you can have in your life? And start building it in now. Okay. Secondly, a sense of engagement. So again, we've gone from P to E. E is our engagement levels, and specifically how we're connecting into our strengths. And we tend to call these our neurological superpowers. So recognizing and using our strengths gives us the energy to perform better and feel better. So think about what your strengths might be. If you're not familiar with what they might be, I highly encourage you to go Google VIA Character Strengths or VIA Character Institute. There is an institute that does free assessments around character strengths, so specifically the things that are part of us that we're strong at, the character aspects of our strengths, and that we might not be recognizing because they're a little easy for us. We think that they're not of great value because we haven't had to work that hard for them, but these are the ways you're naturally wired to connect and feel good and function well in the world. So using our strengths, those things that we're good at and enjoy doing, improve our confidence, resilience, and well-being. And if we were able to just connect into a strength a little bit more consciously day to day, we can make a huge difference there. So one of my strengths personally is curiosity. I happen to be an exceptionally curious person, and very much so when it comes to other people. So one of the simple things that we can be doing when it comes to building our, our strengths at any point, or connecting in with them more day to day, is to turn your morning to-do list into a to-do list. So again, if you're writing a list of things that you need to do today and you're thinking, I don't want to be doing these things, what are the things that you can be using consciously a strength for a little bit more in your working world. So in my case, I might think, okay, I really hate doing my finance stuff or the invoicing. How can I dial up my curiosity at any particular moment to, tap into a strength, something that already makes me feel good, already makes me that bit more energized to use this. I'm going, okay, I'm curious. I don't know a lot about finances. I'm not that curious. Never really looked into it, but maybe I could. What's the one question I might be curious about learning? Or what's one thing that I might want to learn about my client while I was doing my invoicing? Or what's one thing that I might be curious to better understand on making this a bit more joyful for myself? Another one of my strengths is love. So maybe I can see this as a way of, if I'm reaching out to the client, I can send them a little something fun when I do it, a nice positive note of thanks and gratitude to make this a little bit more of an enjoyable experience for me, and to tap into, again, something I'm already wired for. So again, tiny thing we can be doing when it comes to building our engagement. I hope that's something of interest for you. Andrea, before I move on, have you got anything you want to share there?
Bridie's just checking, did you refer to VIA as the website to look up?
I did. So capital V, capital I, capital A. Thank you so much for asking that. And if you have a look, it should be viacharacter.org, I believe. And there's a free test that you can do there. And have a look at, what are your top strengths? It often lists your top 5. And it's not to say that all of those strengths aren't things you use in the world, but it's really nice to get a sense of what are some very natural things for you that when it comes to your character strengths. And if you ever want to learn more about that, please go check out the Wellbeing Labs website. We've got lots of podcasts and interesting things you can listen to regarding strengths.
Megan loves the idea of the jolt of joy. And Diana has put that there's a place in Sydney that does laughter yoga.
Laughter yoga. And again, has anyone seen goat yoga? I think that was another funny one I saw recently. So there's all kinds of good yoga you could be doing in the world. But thank you so much for sharing that. So laughter yoga, I think, is a great jolt of joy, and maybe something that we can all be building into our wealth. But back on that topic though, I think one of the things that we tend to do with positive emotions is we think of them as fleeting, fun, feel-good things that are inconsequential, and we really need to hurry up and get back to the important stuff. So by taking a moment to see them as valuable, worthwhile, and useful in your life, hopefully gives you a little extra permission to take time to do some of those things that just bring you joy. Because who would have thought taking a lunch break and going for a walk or singing a song or having a dance in your living room will in fact help you work better and be better each day. But again, thanks for sharing, Andrew. And again, love to keep hearing your comments as we go. So the next one that I'm excited to share with you is our sense of our relationships. Now, from decades of research in this space of wellbeing science, there's one consistent finding that's shown up beyond and above all things, and that's that more than anything else, our relationships matter for our wellbeing. So it's, having genuine connections is really one of the most fundamental things. We are social creatures. It is in our nature to connect, even if we tend to be people who enjoy time alone. So if you think of yourself, like my father does, he always says, I'm not a social creature. I don't love I like my alone time. It's very much fine to be somebody who's quite introverted and gets their energy from being able to recharge in a solo way. But we don't live in vacuums. We exist through our connections. They give us purpose. They give us meaning. They give us roles that we play in our life. They give us impact to be had on others in the world. We wouldn't exist without them. So truly, our relationships matter. And it's really about looking at the mess and magic of our connections at any particular point in time, no matter if they're good or bad, and seeing how we're interlinked and how we can strengthen them at any step along the way. And this will have a huge difference when it comes to your well-being. So again, when it comes out, what if people, so again, a really lovely one, I love this quote by Brené Brown. There's a real generosity to our connections and to the people in our lives that we can lend as we try to strengthen our connections. And one of the ways we can do that is by very simply asking ourselves, is this person possibly right now doing the best they can with what they have? So if you've woken up at any point or come to, into the office or gone into your home or gone whatever it might be that you do in the world, or gone into your community group or come to a particular society event, and you're thinking that person clearly showed up today just to give me the irrits, and they're clearly here to just make life hard for me, and why can't this person just do what I need them to do? Then this is a beautiful way to just approach that relationship with a little bit more generosity, because I don't think anybody wakes up in the morning thinking, I can't wait to annoy that person. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. I should make assumptions, but I find it hard to believe. So again, can we be a little bit more generous with our relationships to help strengthen them? and to again take one small step in that area. So a micro little tiny, again, tiny is mighty. What's the tiniest thing I can do? Maybe I can improve my relationships over lunch by chewing on curiosity instead of judgment. So again, if you've got a moment there at any moment in the day, so at lunch, when you make your coffee, whatever it might be, to kind of go, who's bugging the hell out of me right now? And how can I potentially just take a deep breath and go, are they perhaps doing the best they have with what they have right now? Because that kind of connection, that kind of generosity will be the first step in any steps you take after that to strengthening, to reaching out, and all the things you possibly are already doing in your life. So again, this is a real micro thing, again, tiny thing you can be doing that will have huge ripples throughout your world and your work and your life when it comes to well-being. Okay. So our next one, meaning. So meaning is exceptionally important when it comes to our well-being. And the single strongest predictor of meaningfulness is that the belief that our jobs have a positive impact on others. More so than our pay, more so than our title, more so than anything else. This is a really interesting finding. They did some amazing studies in hospitals that found that some heart surgeons really considered themselves to feel, a bit flat about their work because they just felt like glorified battery changes. Some of them commented, and a lot of cleaners were able to kind of really able to say that I feel like I'm changing the world every day because I keep people safe from infection and germs. And it's interesting because again, a lot of people might make assumptions about certain roles, certain titles, or certain jobs, but if you see yourself as truly having a positive impact in the world and positive impact on others, then we will find that our sense of meaning positively improves, sometimes skyrockets, and can shape the way that you approach just about anything. So the way you see your work, and if you can see the impact you're having at any particular point, is going to have a huge impact on your well-being. So have you taken a moment recently to really check in and go, what do I do day to day, or moment to moment, or even just one moment of the week, and how does that positively impact others in my life? So do something sweet for your afternoon tea. Again, a really simple, small, tiny thing you can be doing, and share some gratitude with somebody around you. Just make that connection, just to let them know that they're meaningful to you, and clearly give them the invitation to show that you're meaningful to them. So how can you help others build their meaning? By being grateful, but also please ask yourself one question as you walk away today: is what did I do today? And how did it have a positive impact on others? It doesn't have to be changing the world. How did it positively impact the person sitting next to me, or the person that I spoke to today, or the person that I popped a note into chat and in a webinar today, and other people got to share their experience and really see that, hey, maybe I was brave enough to put where I'm at in there, so other people got to kind of go, wow, I'm not alone in this. So again, that was just a moment of positive impact for others. Even the question I asked, simply one. I asked that I was brave enough to put my hand up and go, what was that website again? Because other people were clearly probably asking that question. And I had a very small, but possibly really impactful difference to others. So we do these things in small ways. Please note them.
It applies whether we're at work or at home. So it's your example there was workplace, but we can apply that whether we're at the shops, we're interacting with the checkout chick, or if we're buying petrol, or we've got someone coming into our home to provide care in some way. We can still have those moments of gratitude and change that
Most
experience.
Definitely, and thank you for pointing that out. I should point out that I say world and work because work is pretty much the same for most people. We go somewhere, or we have that, but our world, it can be quite different to people. So wherever you may be living, wherever you may be connecting, wherever may you be spending your day, whoever you may be spending that with, that's your world. And that's how you're showing up at any particular point. So again, I'll flex between those two distinctions because I wanted to give you a little bit of flexibility around what world meant to you. But thanks so much for pointing that out, Andrea. I think that helps. So wonderful. So again, here we go. So our next one here is, more importantly, so again, we're on to accomplishment. So we've talked about our positive emotions, our relationships, our sense of, our engagement, our relationships, and our meaning. We are now onto our sense of accomplishment. So more important than believing in your abilities is the belief that you can improve your abilities. And this is a really important one when it comes to our sense of accomplishment. This here is the definition of being gritty, a belief that we can improve rather than just a belief that we have an ability or not. Because we can often get stuck in what we call a fixed mindset when we believe that I have an ability or not, but rather when we have a growth mindset, we believe that there is always something that I can be doing or adjusting or changing in my world to make some kind of positive difference into my space or whatever it might be that I can do or I can't. So even in the face of great struggle and challenge, where limitations might be up against me, rather than drawing the line in the sand and saying there is no pathway forward to anything that I'd like to engage with at any particular time, rather taking a pause and thinking, what can I grow? What can I kind of hold up and go, what is the thing that I can adjust, I can influence, that I can do at any particular point in time? And if I believe that there is something there that maybe I haven't seen before, maybe I need a positive emotion boost to kind of expand the way I'm seeing things, to just see that little thing that I might be able to influence in a moment. In that moment, I'm being a little bit more gritty. So at any particular point when you're kind of wanting to be a bit more gritty and wanting to open yourself up to that, try to run what we call a learning loop as you wind down and reflect on, anything that you might be doing. And a way to do that is to ask yourself, what went well? Where did I struggle? And what did I learn right now? So I gave something a go. I came up against maybe a challenge. Maybe I, succeeded beyond my wildest beliefs, whatever it might be. But the thing that will always help us keep reminding ourselves that I can always keep making adjustments. I can always keep looking for what I can influence at any particular point in time. And I can keep doing something for my growth, my well-being, and, being who I want to be in the world. Then again, what went well just then? Where did I struggle? What did I learn? And then maybe what do I want to try next is a great way to constantly keep this loop in our minds, to embrace that, rather than to, again, sit only from a place where we can only see the stop signs in front of us. So accomplishment, I'm hoping that's a really helpful one for you there. And then, of course, we've got finally health. So here, when we're looking at health, we are not built to persist incessantly, but to oscillate from effort to rest and back again. And if there's anything that I want to share with you around health, it's definitely this, and especially at this time in our world, because I think that a lot of us naturally know that our eating and sleeping and our moving are very important to our well-being, but few of us give ourselves permission to see that rest and recovery is natural and an essential part of any cycle in our worlds. And if, of course, we're, whatever work we might be doing or play we might be doing in the world. So we really need to be thinking about this as something that oscillates. I always like to think of athletes. I think they do that well. They see essential periods of rest and recovery. They wouldn't run marathon after marathon. It just would not be realistic for the body. For some strange reason, we expect very different things from our hearts and minds than we do from our bodies. So if we can pause and really think, no, we've run a marathon emotionally, we've run a marathon mentally, we've run our marathon, whatever it might be, how can I make sure that I have these moments of rest and recovery that really do help me care for my health? And again, rest and recovery can look very different for each of us. So it's important to pause and think about, what does that look like for me? I am a very musical creature, and a lot of the things that I gain from is music. So again, moments to sit and reflect and breathe with that is important to me. What might it be to you? You might notice that a lot of people can see I've usually got a ukulele in my background. Oddly enough, that's usually a very micro recovery break for me. Still have a little bit of a play and sing, and that's my pause. But what brings you joy? What helps give you energy at any particular moment? Not just I sit in front of Netflix because that kind of levels me. I'm not expending energy. That's fine. But again, what might give you some energy in that recovery moment that makes a positive difference in your own life? So again, if you turn to page 8 in your playbook, I know we went through a lot of things quickly today, but hopefully there's at least one thing you can take away from all of the different things we spoke about with regards to your well-being. And I encourage you, if the thing that I mentioned doesn't work for you, you've got 3 options under each of these pillars to start thinking about when it comes to your well-being. The other thing that I want to invite you to do, if you're interested, is to go take our Perma survey. And this happens to be a well-being survey that can come up with much more nuanced for you around where you're at right now, what you can be feeling, and it provides you a little bit of a dashboard around where you're sitting in each of the pillars, and a few extra strategies in each. So if you just Google Perma, which is PERMAH survey and the Wellbeing Lab, you will easily see our survey there, and you're very welcome to take that for free for an individual report. And please share it forward with others. If they'd like to take the survey, do so. If you want to share this playbook with people you care about in your world and you really want to help them understand wellbeing, then I give you full permission to do so. You are very welcome to. We want to make sure that more people out there are learning how they can make very small changes in their world to improve their wellbeing. And here's the last thing that I want to share with you around a very simple thing that you can be doing to make very small changes in your wellbeing. So I talked about tiny is mighty, and that is so true. Wellbeing, remember I said it ebbs and flows each day, so does our willpower. Our willpower is not the same at 9 AM in the morning as it is 3 in the afternoon. I'm sure you can appreciate that. Anybody reach for the chocolate in 3 o'clock in the afternoon? Or maybe your willpower is really high then and it's really low at night. Oddly enough, my willpower is super high at night and really low in the morning. It's different for everybody. So relying on wellbeing can be a really, really, really difficult thing when it comes to growing our wellbeing. Sorry, relying on our willpower can be a difficult thing when it comes to our wellbeing. And we tend to really lean into shame and blame when we just don't have enough at any particular point in day, when we're trying to do that healthy behavior or that meaning behavior or that relationship behavior, and our energy levels are running really low. So here is a very simple strategy to make this work in your world. Think of a tiny habit. So forget willpower, have an anchoring moment, something that prompts you in your life to take on a certain behavior. So this might be picking up the phone, or this might be when you make your tea or coffee in the morning, or this might be when you someone comes to provide you care and sits with you, the moment they sit. Or maybe this is the moment that you brush your teeth, or have someone help in certain areas of your world. What might it be, that prompt, that thing that happens very consistently in your life? Think about that. It already is there. I'm going to use that. The moment that happens, I'm going to execute my very tiny behavior. So again, it might be my jolt of joy. It might be my relationship strategy. It might be that learning loop that I want to run. And then finally, celebrate. Now this might sound a bit odd to celebrate something that I feel that I should be doing and is good for me, but neurologically, the more dopamine we experience off the back of any kind of activity or behavior, the more likely I am to remember to do it the next time, want to do it the next time, and my brain is less likely to put up a fight if my willpower is low. So I know it sounds odd, but we need that dopamine boost to rewire and trick our brains into actually wanting to do this again. So take times to do this. So what might this look like for you? Again, my cup of tea in the morning, I know when I hit the kettle boil thing, my tiny behavior for my jolt of joy is to have a sing. And the way that I celebrate after is to do a little bit of a jiggle and have a bit of a laugh at myself in the kitchen, whatever it might be. And then that's my tiny habit. Or maybe when I brush my teeth, I do 3 deep breaths when I'm done, and I think about what I'm grateful for today, or I express it to somebody else. And then I say something out loud like, well done, Michelle, or whatever it might be. Whatever, again, gives me that slight dopamine, something authentic, whatever gives you a slight dopamine boost can really work well for you there. So my very final note, please embrace the mistakes and discoveries as you use them moving forward. This is not a right way or a wrong way, and this is not success or failure. This is about what suits you as a unique individual and your unique circumstances and the way of operating in the world. But I please do encourage you to go forward and think about, keep learning about and understanding your well-being, caring for it, and changing those little behaviors. And if you need further support, of course, please always reach out to any of the people that can be doing so in your world. If you are sitting strongly in that struggling category, reach out to the people at MS, and of course, anywhere else that you can to get those extra support. So thank you so much again for your time today. And Andrea, I will hand that back to you with our last 3 minutes to round us out.
Thank you so much, Michelle. I don't know that we're brave enough to run the video, are we?
I think we're going to leave it with the connection at the moment. That's fine. Yeah.
Just while people are popping in some comments or some questions, if you want to.
If anybody has questions, of course.
Yep. I'm just going to remind people of some of the services that we have at MS, and certainly MS Connect can be your point of contact as well. And we'd love to hear from you on anything. And another one that I thought I would strongly recommend is peer support, which isn't coming up there, but that's okay. The peer support program at MS is a fabulous way of connecting with other people who are living with MS, either individually on the phone or through groups. And that those groups might be telephone-based groups, or they could be groups in person as well. And so I would strongly encourage you to make those connections, because often having a group of people around you makes it a little bit easier to initiate some of these tiny habits and the things that you're wanting to change, because you then have that support network around you. So thank you,
It's also a
Michelle.
beautiful boost to relationships. Think about it. So relationships, knowing that you're having a positive impact by supporting others or being kept connecting. So it's a great one for meaning as well, sense of accomplishment. This is a great way to tap into just about every different one of those pillars by this one activity. So I think it's a great one there, Andrea.
Yeah, and it's really wonderful now that they're on by phone as well, that it's, you know, it's taking out the whole effort of having to go out again at night, or if it's, you know, a distance to travel in the day. It's wonderful. Monica thinks it's great. Thank you so much for sharing quotes from all her favourite psychologists and social scientists and researchers. The best way to consolidate these fabulous ideas and insights. So I'll just confirm for Bridie, she's put in a couple of comments. Bridie, the cup of coffee could be the anchor moment that becomes the reminder to do the thing that you were wanting to do. Another one that was presented to me last year was when you're running the tap for your shower, so you're waiting for the hot water to come through, that's a sign to do 5 or 10 squats while you're waiting for the shower. So the anchor moment is that you're putting the shower on, and the activity you're wanting to do is that you were wanting to do a few more squats. Go on, Michelle.
And much to Bridie's point there, the coffee could also be a celebration. So it might be that you do your behavior once you click the kettle on, but you do the behavior in between, and then your celebration is to really love that cup of coffee, or to really enjoy the hot water spray on you. So again, whatever's going to, just think about what feels good in your brain, like what gives you that boost. That's really going to help you at any particular point know what's a good celebration to tap on. But I love those examples, definitely. Yeah.
Nicola wants to know what your great song is for your jolt of joy.
Nicola, I have so many playlists. It's not funny. I have a real playlist problem. If you've happen to use Spotify, feel free to Google to search the Change Lab. There's a Change Lab Wellbeing mix. There's a Change Lab Resilience mix, and there's a Change Lab Victory Laps mix. And there's a Change Lab Sit with Struggle mix, because again, sitting and embracing struggle sometimes is an important part of wellbeing. So I can't help myself. There's so many in there. But at the moment, I think my one this morning was Sam and Davis, Hold On, I'm Coming, which is a really old soul classic, but it's got really good groove to it. So again, that was mine this morning, but I encourage you to go have a look if you want to see some of my other ones.
That's fantastic. That'll speak to Rosanna too, because she put a comment about music on Spotify. That's great.
I feel free to follow, and again, it's lovely to have some other music buffs. It definitely makes a huge difference for my wellbeing. Yeah.
That's terrific. Marianne's put in her thanks for an excellent program. There's a few more of those thanks coming through, so that's lovely. Oh, Lisa's just encouraging the peer support. She's actually done the training, and she's going to be helping as a peer, which is wonderful. Just checking through, I think the other comments are reinforcing what we've said. Yep. And Peter's saying he's feeling a bit overwhelmed by all the information right now, so he's going to go and look back through his notes and identify something small. That's a really good point, Peter.
And thanks for sharing. And I guess that's the nature of having 1 hour together. It's, we all have very different needs, and we all would have rated probably differently on what we wanted to focus on. So I wanted to give you one thing for each, but I encourage you not to try and remember it all, because the whole point wasn't to do that. And again, we've put a lot of work into creating a playbook for you that you can pick up at any point and reread if you want to learn more about each of these things again. I'd just pick one thing you want to try, and one thing that resonated. And if that's all that you think about over the next couple of months, weeks, days, then great. If you ever want to pick it up again and take up one extra thing, perfect. But even the tiniest thing will have a positive impact. So
Absolutely.
please don't overwhelm yourself. And thank you for, yeah, I know it's a lot of information, but hopefully it's a bit, think of it more as a smorgasbord. You choose.
Yeah, that's a wonderful way to think about it. Absolutely. Thank you, Michelle, so much for your time today and your positive energy that you bring to the presentation. So it's just been wonderful. And thank you, everyone, for being so willing to participate in the comments and the survey and just being part of the program. We look forward to hopefully opportunities in the future to do more with the Change Lab. And we thank you very much again for your time today. We'll look forward to seeing everyone at a future webinar. There will be a little survey actually when you finish this as well about the webinars. So there's lots of surveys to do.
I'd love to hear how it goes. All right, have a
Thanks,
wonderful day.
Joanne. Thanks, Michelle. Bye for now.
Cheers, take care.